The time it happened, nobody in the small town saw it coming. Not the customers lined up at the checkout. Not the employees stacking shelves under the store's flickering fluorescent lights. And certainly not the smug, heavy-set store owner standing behind the counter, sizing up the young black man in front of him with a look of thinly veiled contempt. At first, it seemed like a routine visit, just another customer stepping into Millstone's general store, a place that had been standing for nearly a century. But what happened next would shake the foundations of that store and expose a truth that had been buried for decades. Isaiah had only come in for one thing, a simple bottle of water. He wasn't expecting to be watched like a hawk the moment he stepped through the door. The owner, Mr. Langford, an older white man with a graying mustache and a belly that pressed against his stained apron, leaned on the counter with a smirk. His beady eyes followed Isaiah's every move. It started small, a snide comment under Langford's breath. "In and out, son. No funny business." Isaiah paused, turning his head slightly. He didn't say anything, yet, but he noticed something odd. The older white customers browsing the aisles didn't get the same treatment. No hovering, no narrowed eyes watching their every step, just him. He let it go. He had more important things to do than get into it with some bitter old man. He grabbed a bottle of water, made his way to the counter, and reached into his pocket for his wallet. That's when Langford let the words slip. "You sure you can afford that?" Star. The words hung in the air like a bad stench. A few customers froze, sensing the shift in tension. Isaiah raised an eyebrow, still calm, but now paying full attention. "Excuse me?" Langford smirked, crossing his arms. He was testing him, trying to get a reaction. "I just know how your kind are," Langford chuckled. "Always looking for a handout or a reason to stir up trouble. You people don't buy, you steal." Star. The room went silent. A cashier, a young woman with auburn hair tied back in a tight ponytail, looked down at her register, clearly uncomfortable. An older man near the entrance shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Isaiah let out a slow breath. He'd dealt with men like this before, the kind who thought their store, their town, their world was still stuck in some bygone era where they could say whatever they wanted without consequence. He could have walked away. He almost did. But then Langford made one last mistake. "I've run this store for 30 years, he scoffed. "Built it from the ground up. Ain't no punk like you gonna walk in here and act like you belong." Star. That's when Isaiah laughed. A low chuckle, shaking his head as he pulled out his wallet. "You built this store?" he repeated. Langford's smug expression didn't waver. "Damn right." Isaiah reached into his wallet and pulled out something folded and old, something his grandfather had given him years ago. He slapped it onto the counter. A yellowed photograph, creased with age. Langford's face went pale. The picture showed a man standing in front of Millstone's general store, but not just any man. A black man, tall, strong, with dark brown skin and a confident smile. Standing next to him, Langford's own father. The caption beneath the photo read, "Grand Opening, Millstone's General Store, founded by Nathaniel Porter and Henry Langford, 1932. Isaiah tapped a finger on the photo. "You recognize him, don't you?" His voice was deadly calm now. Langford's lip twitched, his hands curled into fists. "Well, where did you get that?" Isaiah leaned in. "That's my grandfather, Nathaniel Porter, the real builder of this store." The color drained from Langford's face as the realization crashed down on him like a hammer. The store he had bragged about building, The store he had used to mock a young black man for not belonging? It had been built by that young man's own blood. The customers who had been watching were no longer silent. A murmur spread through the store. The cashier's eyes widened. Even the old man near the entrance finally spoke up. "Wait a minute. You're telling me this kid's family owned this place first?" Star Isaiah folded his arms. "Not first. We built it together. My grandfather and his grandfather." Star. The air in the store was thick with tension. Langford's face twisted in denial, his mind scrambling for a way to take back control. That's when he did something nobody expected. With one swift motion, he grabbed the old photo off the counter and tore it in half. Gasps filled the room. Isaiah's heart pounded. Langford leaned in close, his voice a low, hateful growl. "I don't care what some old photo says. This store is mine now, and I ain't letting no one, especially you, tell me otherwise." Star. For the first time, Isaiah felt his hands ball into fists. He wasn't just being mocked anymore. This was personal. And what Langford didn't realize was that Isaiah hadn't come alone. Before Isaiah could even react, the bell above the store's door jingled. A tall, imposing figure stepped inside. Dark brown skin, a graying beard, eyes that had seen everything. The entire store fell silent. Langford's expression shifted from smug to terrified. Because standing in the doorway, with the same face from the old photograph, was Isaiah's grandfather. And the look on the old man's face promised that this wasn't over. The moment it happened, everyone in Millstone's general store felt it. The tension was thick as smoke, hanging in the air like an unspoken challenge. Langford stood frozen behind the counter, his face drained of color. His lips pressed into a tight line as his eyes flickered between Isaiah and the towering man in the doorway. The man who had just walked in was the very same person from the torn photograph. Isaiah's grandfather, Nathaniel Porter Jr. He wasn't just a relic from the past. He was a living, breathing piece of history, a man who had stayed quiet for decades. But now he was here, standing in the store his father had built, and staring down the man who had just tried to erase that history. And he did not look happy. Langford swallowed hard. The store was dead silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the old ceiling fan, turning lazily above their heads. Isaiah took a step back, his chest still tight with anger, but now it wasn't just about him anymore. This was bigger than him. His grandfather, usually a man of quiet strength, slowly walked forward, his boots echoing against the floorboards. He reached the counter, placed both hands on the glass, and leaned in slightly. "You really thought you could just rewrite history, didn't you?" His voice was calm but sharp, like a knife sliding out of its sheath. Langford let out a breathy chuckle, but it was forced, his eyes darting around the store, looking for support. The customers were still watching, some clutching their carts, others standing completely still. The cashier's face was a mixture of shock and awe. For the first time, Langford had nowhere to hide. "I don't know what you're talking about," Langford muttered, straightening his apron. "That picture don't prove nothing." Nathaniel Jr. didn't blink. He reached into the inner pocket of his long brown coat and pulled something out, a stack of yellowed documents bound together. Nathaniel didn't drop them on the counter. Instead, he spread them out, slowly, deliberately. Isaiah peered over his shoulder and felt his stomach drop. Deeds, old contracts, legal documents. Langford's smirk disappeared. Nathaniel Jr. tapped a finger on the top page. "You know what this is?" Langford didn't answer. Isaiah leaned in. His eyes scanned the text, and then they widened. "This is a land deed," Isaiah muttered, flipping through the papers. This says our family still owns part of this property." Nathaniel Jr. nodded. Not just part, all of it. Isaiah's breath caught in his throat. He snatched up the document, reading faster now. The words jumped out at him. The property, Millstone's general store, had never actually been fully transferred to the Langford family. It had been stolen. Langford's hand twitched. That's a lie, he spat. Nathaniel Jr. only raised an eyebrow. Is it? Langford's eyes flickered to the back office door. Isaiah saw it. Something was back there. He stepped forward. What are you hiding? Langford stepped in front of him, blocking his way. You ain't going anywhere, boy. Isaiah didn't back down. Nathaniel Jr. crossed his arms. You know, I wasn't gonna come back here. I told myself I'd leave this place behind. His voice was low, steady, dangerous. But then my grandson told me what you said to him, and now I have questions. Isaiah glanced at his grandfather. There was something in his voice, something deeper. Langford's forehead was now slick with sweat. This store is mine, Langford snapped. I paid for it. Nathaniel Jr. nodded slowly. Sure, but what about the back office? Langford stiffened. And that was all the confirmation Isaiah needed. He didn't wait. He pushed past Langford, shoving the door open before the man could stop him, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The back office was small and cramped, filled with dusty filing cabinets and an old wooden desk covered in papers. But that wasn't the shocking part. No, what made Isaiah's hands shake was the safe in the corner. It was old, ancient even, the kind you only see in movies, and it was partially open. Isaiah glanced at his grandfather, who had followed him inside, and saw his face harden. He stepped forward and pulled the heavy door open the rest of the way. Inside were dozens of documents, old receipts, contracts, and buried beneath them. An envelope. It was thick, stuffed with folded pages. Nathaniel Jr. pulled it out, flipped it over, and his entire body went rigid. Because printed in bold black ink across the front was a name. Porter Langford Business Agreement 1932. Isaiah's breath caught. His grandfather's hands tightened on the envelope. Langford lunged forward. You don't touch that! Isaiah grabbed him by the collar and shoved him back. No, you don't touch this! Nathaniel Jr. tore open the envelope and pulled out the top sheet. His eyes scanned the words. And then he exhaled sharply. Son of a... Isaiah took the paper from him, his hands shaking as he read. And then he understood. The agreement, signed by both Nathaniel Porter Sr. and Henry Langford, stated that the business was supposed to be a 50-50 split. But there was more. In the 1960s, after Nathaniel Sr. passed away, the Langford family had forged a separate document, falsely claiming that the Porters had abandoned their share. The store had never been Langford's alone. His family had stolen it. Isaiah slowly looked up. Langford's face was red, his chest heaving. You don't get it, do you? Langford hissed. Nobody cares. This town, this store, it belongs to me now. Isaiah took a step forward. Not anymore. Langford let out a furious growl and lunged, but Nathaniel Jr. was faster. The old man grabbed Langford's wrist and twisted, sending him crashing to the floor. Langford howled in pain. Isaiah leaned down, voice deadly quiet. You've been running from the truth your whole life. But now, the whole town's gonna know exactly what kind of man you are. Nathaniel Jr. pulled out his phone and dialed a number. It's time to set the record straight. Langford froze, because he knew exactly who Nathaniel was calling. Lawyers, the press, the historical society. By morning, everyone in town would know the truth. And Langford, he was finished.